For thousands of years, humans have already known about diabetes, and over this vast stretch of time, it's been generally believed that this super common medical condition has no cure. An incredible development, though, may have just changed this way of thinking. A woman has been diabetes-free for over a year, thanks to her own cells. From a new type of farm that could stop deforestation in its tracks, to a drug that will significantly improve the mental health of schizophrenia sufferers. Hey, I'm your host Regis, and here are 7 of the best good news stories of October. Sit back and relax. This video is gonna lift your mood. For our first story, we're zooming in on Pennsylvania, where 6 new species of bee have been found. Bees are one of the most important creatures of the natural world. In fact, without them, there wouldn't even really be a natural world. Around 80% of all flowering plants, which includes virtually all fruits and most vegetables, are dependent on a process known as pollination. This is when an insect transfers a type of reproductive grain called pollen, which is produced by most flowering plants from plant to plant. In the case of the bee, when it lands on a flower, it sucks up and feeds on nectar. But while doing this, it also picks up pollen, which gets stuck to its furry body. Then, when it lands on another plant, the pollen is deposited onto a stigma, a female reproductive organ, causing it to produce seeds. And it's not just bees that do this. Moths, waterflies, wasps, flies, and even bats are also classed as pollinating animals. Around 20,000 species of bee carry out this important task, and 6 more have just been discovered. Over a 16-month time span, over 9,000 bees were collected and classified by trained volunteers as part of a research project at Pennsylvania State University. Following evaluations of the study, they were abuzz to find that 6 of them were entirely new species previously unknown to science. The finds include an entirely new type of ground nesting bee. Yes, 70% of bees actually live and lay eggs in underground nests, so watch your step. 2 sweat bees have also been identified. This is a family of bees that's attracted to the salt produced by human perspiration. Sorry. I think I need to close my window. In addition to this, 2 new leaf-cutting bees were also logged. These cute little things take bits of leaf and make nests with them. Finally, a new kind of honeybee, which is probably the one you're most familiar with, was also found. You know, without bees, we literally wouldn't have strawberries, which brings us to our next story. The world's first vertical strawberry farm has opened up in Virginia. Now, vertical farming might seem like a weird concept, but hear me out on this one. To understand it, we first have to take a look at the problems with traditional horizontal farming. The main one is that expanding agricultural land leads to deforestation and the destruction of various animals' habitats. Another major disadvantage is that the crops are reliant on inconsistent factors, such as sun and rainfall, which can vary wildly throughout the year. Back in 1999, a Columbia University professor and a bunch of grad students came up with vertical farming. Their idea was to grow layers of crops on top of each other inside a multi-story building. This can be achieved by artificially controlling temperature, light, water, and humidity inside the chamber. This has a number of advantages. It's a more efficient use of space, you can grow crops all year round, even at nighttime, and it's unaffected by poor weather conditions. At the forefront of this farming revolution is agricultural startup Plenty Unlimited, who have just opened the world's first vertical strawberry farm in Richmond, Virginia. Using advanced software, they've created the perfect conditions for them to thrive on 30-foot tall towers. This includes a special system that employs airflow to pollinate the strawberries, meaning they don't have to rely on bees. Sorry, guys. This scalable factory will run all year round, and it's expected to produce annually more than 1.8 million kilograms of the juiciest, most flavorsome strawberries you'll ever eat. That's enough to meet the annual strawberry needs of about 750,000 Americans. And the most amazing part? They'll all be cultivated using only 3,700 square meters. That's about the size of 2 soccer pitches and 97% less land than would be needed if they were grown traditionally. If you want to try some for yourself, look out for Driscoll's strawberries in the supermarket in early 2025, when the first batch will be shipped out. Speaking of shipping, work has just restarted on a canal that will revolutionize trade in Western Europe after a 20-year delay. The Canal du Nord is one of France's busiest commercial waterways. Located in northern France, over the decades, it facilitated trade between France, Belgium, and the Netherlands. It opened up all the way back in 1966, but its origins are actually a lot older. Initial excavations began in 1908. That's 5 years after the invention of the airplane. As you might have figured out, this important trade artery is more than a little outdated, and this has caused a number of issues. Its limited capacity means it can't handle the current volume of traffic going through it. This includes the new generation of supersized cargo ships, which are simply too big for it to handle. As a result of all this, bottlenecks that cost time and money are a frequent occurrence. The idea for a replacement was first posited in 1975, but serious moves only began to be made in the early 2000s. For a little while, everything seemed to be going swimmingly, until the 2008 financial crisis tanked the world economy. The project was put on hold only to resume in 2013, but by this time, environmental concerns were in the global spotlight, and so a massive 2-year green reassessment of the project had to be completed. But after this, disagreements over the funding and planning of the route caused even more delays. It's only now, after 20 years, that work has finally commenced. Set to be finished by 2030, the 107-kilometer-long Seine-Nord-Europe Canal will solve the bottleneck problem by making it a lot wider. More specifically, it'll be 54 meters wide. To put that in perspective, the thinnest part of the Canal du Nord is just 6.3 meters. Because of its increased size, when it opens, it's predicted to remove as many as 1 million heavy goods vehicles from roads every year. Finally, it's worth mentioning that one of the project's pledges is to actually increase biodiversity. For this purpose, animal habitats, wildlife movement corridors, and gently sloping banks will also be created along the canal. Okay, let's move over to the other side of the North Sea, because the United Kingdom has officially closed its last remaining coal power plant. Historically, the United Kingdom was at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution, when the benefits of coal power were first being discovered. It was on the back of this that the world's first coal power plant was opened up in London in 1882. Britain's love affair with this particular fossil fuel has lasted a while. As recently as 2012, coal still made up about 39% of the country's power supply. In 2015, however, the breakup began when they announced they were going to completely get rid of coal by the year 2025 by increasing their dependence on renewable sources of energy like wind and solar. There's no other way to say this, but the Brits did such an incredible job that the phase-out date was soon revised to the year before. This was because in 2019, it was revealed that only 2% of its national electricity came from coal, which was a lot less than expected. This incredibly quick reversal was achieved by increasing the price of coal, encouraging investment in renewable energy, and improving the efficiency of clean energy delivery in the power grid. Progress went exceedingly well after this, because by 2023, they'd quadrupled wind and solar generation, with only a modest increase in their reliance on gas, another fossil fuel. True to their claims, the nation's last coal power plant has just been closed. The facility in question was the Ratcliffe-on-Soar Power Station in Nottinghamshire. Sorry about that. This puts them on track to reach their target of achieving a fully decarbonized power system by 2030. Let's get medical, because the American Food and Drug Administration has approved the first new drug for schizophrenia in more than 30 years. Schizophrenia is a mental illness in which those afflicted sometimes can't tell the difference between their own thoughts and reality. Symptoms can include hallucinations, delusions, muddled thoughts, and a sense of disconnection from feelings and emotions. Around 24 million people worldwide have it right now. In the 1950s, the first generation of drugs to treat schizophrenia were rolled out. Known broadly as antipsychotics, the two main ones were chlorpromazine and haloperidol. They worked by altering the levels of dopamine in the brain, a chemical that changes mood, motivation, and thinking. These drugs proved so effective that in the decades after, most new antipsychotics were basically just variations of these two. On the other hand, there are some major drawbacks. The side effects can include weight gain, drowsiness, and even movement disorders. These can often be so debilitating that 20 to 30% of patients stop taking them. Well, now there's a new drug in town, and it has significantly less severe side effects. Its name is Cobenfy, and it's ingested in pill form twice a day. Instead of adjusting dopamine, it's designed to alter levels of acetylcholine, an organic brain compound that affects memory, learning, and attention. In clinical trials, only 6% of users stopped their daily dosage of Cobenfy because of side effects. This illustrates that it could be a much-needed alternative to traditional dopamine targeting medicine. It could also be very useful for patients who didn't respond well to pre-existing treatments. We stay in the USA for our next story, where local parks have received their biggest investment ever. Scientifically, spending time outside improves both mental and physical health, but in America, a lot of city dwellers just don't have access to it. Unfortunately, these are often minority and low-income groups. 3 years ago, it was revealed that in the 100 most populated cities, neighborhoods that are predominantly Black, Hispanic, Asian, or Pacific Islander have 44% less park acreage to enjoy than mostly white neighborhoods. In response to these statistics, the government has just announced that they're investing a record sum of money into 54 park redevelopment projects spread across 24 different states. The total grant will be $254 million. A lot of the largest investments have gone to parks in smaller cities, such as Regional Park in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and Bright Park in West Sacramento, California. The move is part of the Biden administration's Justice 40 initiative, which aims to allocate 40% of the benefits of all federal funding to the disadvantaged communities. Okay guys, it's time for the big one. A woman's diabetes has been reversed in a world first. But before we talk about that, we quickly want to mention a great way to brighten your day with even more good news. Recently, we launched our very own Good News email newsletter. Every Monday and Friday, you'll receive a beautifully crafted email filled with 5 uplifting stories from all around the world. Just head over to good-news.io or click the first link in the description. We put a lot of effort into these newsletters, and your support really helps us to keep creating and sharing this good news content. Thank you so much, and now it's time for our final story. Diabetes is a condition where your pancreas either doesn't produce enough of or can't effectively use a hormone called insulin. Insulin is important because it regulates glucose, a type of sugar, for energy. If you don't have enough insulin or your body can't use the insulin well, your blood sugar rises to uncontrollable levels. An episode like this is known as hyperglycemia or a hypo. This can seriously damage many of your internal systems, in particular nerves and blood vessels. Over time, this makes diabetes sufferers more susceptible to heart attacks, strokes, and kidney failure. Now, there are 2 types of this illness. Most people have type 2 diabetes, which stops the body from using insulin effectively. This is caused by being overweight, inactive, or simply by genetics, so it's viewed as a much more preventable form. In contrast, much fewer people have type 1 diabetes, which is characterized by a lack of insulin production. This is a bit of a medical mystery, as the exact causes are still unknown. All we know for sure is that it's more common in people from higher income countries. At the moment, the only way to stop diabetes from becoming fatal is by regular injections of insulin. Up until now, it was thought that this terrible disease was uncurable. But not anymore, it seems. A 25-year-old woman in China has been able to reverse her type 1 diabetes to the point where she doesn't need insulin injections. She can even eat regular sugar now. Wow, just let that sink in for a second. This was achieved by extracting stem cells from the woman in question and transforming them into insulin-producing islet cells, which are found in the pancreas. Stem cells are special because they can be turned into a variety of different cells found in the body. In June 2023, these were then transferred to the patient in an operation lasting under half an hour. In less than 3 months, she was producing enough insulin to effectively regulate her blood sugar levels. After a year, these levels were consistently staying in the target range for more than 98% of the day. While this is great news in and of itself, it's too early to say if diabetes has been cured per se. More time will be needed to assess the patient, and the results will have to be replicated by others for full confirmation. Still, it's not unreasonable to say that we may be on the cusp of curing a disease that affects an estimated 500 million people worldwide. Wow, I suddenly feel a lot better. Which of our good news stories changed your mood the most? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, you can find our sources for this video in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next weekend.